And good morning. We're live on YouTube. It is Wednesday, a gorgeous Wednesday in the Southeast in Atlanta. Hope you're enjoying this wonderful spring. We're going to bring in our Facebook groups. Then we'll get going. And I remember at 8:35 that Nick told me he wasn't going to be here. I knew that. And just, kind of seem to forget about it until it's time. I'm kind of a in the moment type of person, not the excellent planner. I drive type A's crazy. That's why I like having them in my life. Welcome in, everybody. This is the Falcons Podcast, Wednesday edition after the draft. I thought it'd be a good time to start digging into some post-NFL draft power rankings, knowing full well they don't change a whole lot. And frankly, with a few exceptions, rookies don't tend to make enormous impacts in their first season. There's usually a scale between, they end up becoming key players and then they are being redshirted. Usually you're not completely on where the Falcons were last year. So the fun thing for the Falcons is this class should have a much more significant impact than last year's class did in 2024. And last year's class in 2024 should have a huge impact on 2025, including Michael Penix Jr., obviously. We go live on these days because we like having the conversation with y'all. So I want to do a roundup of some of the power rankings, some of the implications of them, some of how much I agree with them or not. And then we'll say hello to everybody else. That's kind of where we are for the show today. Denver Luke was here nice and early. Joseph Smith from Ocala. It's probably about perfect in Ocala right now, too, as perfect as Central Florida can get. One of the hottest places in the world. He says, this was a great draft. Well done to the Falcons management. Austin, morning, fellas. Another Austin coming in. He says, rise up. Really hoping the Falcons can squeak a 10-7 record and make the playoffs. And hopefully improved D will help. Penix showed he can operate the offense in his 3 starts. Yeah, you don't want to go, too overboard. And I know the Falcons actually have, because their jobs are on the line this year. And pointing out how good young stud quarterback, and so excited for next year. They've put a lot of pressure on Michael Penix in his first year as a starter because there's a lot of pressure on them. The one thing I can almost guarantee is Michael Penix will be the quarterback in 2026. After that, we'll see. We will see on that one. Try again. Let me get out the bigger hammer. All of a sudden, my left mouse button. We're going to go in now. Get it going. Trent says, good morning. And what's up, Nick? Nick is on baby duty today. His wife's out of town. He's flying solo with a 1-year-old. So hopefully they're both sleeping out in Seattle is what I'm hoping. Chances of Kobe Bryant and Nick Nash make the final 53. Trenton, I like this question. And I think the answer to that is absolutely. The initial thought, we talked about them both, actually. So I think the chances are pretty strong. If you think the Falcons take 5 wide receivers on their 53 and maybe 6, depending on special teams or whatnot, you've got Drake, Darnell, Ray, 1, 2, 3. I think Kadarius Hodge has a spot. I put him in there. After that, Chris Blair, Dylan Drummond, Casey Washington, Jesse Matthews, Mekhi Polk, Jamal Agnew, Philip Dorsett Jr., David Sills. There's nobody in there. I'd say the first 4 are good. Then it could be 5 and 6. There's going to be some big competition, including last year's draft pick. But I think there is absolutely a chance. I would probably hedge towards Casey Washington making it as a special teams guy, a year in the system, and a draft pick. But I think Nick Nash can absolutely make it. And then if you look at the cornerback room, Mike Hughes is going to make it. AJ Terrell is going to make it. After that, it's pretty open, honestly, after that. Mike Ford, maybe. Harrison Hand, Keith Traylor. I think when Kelvin King re-signed, I thought he was re-signed. I don't see him on here. In the nickel, I think D. Alford has $230,000 of guaranteed money. He's not for sure. I think Clark Phillips makes it. There's Kevin King. He's way down in the 4th spot as a nickel. But you're probably going to keep as many as 6 cornerbacks if I slide Billy Bowman over into that cornerback role as a nickel at 5'11", 192 pounds, then I think Billy Bowman, Clark Phillips, Mike Hughes, and A.J. Terrell, that's 4. There's an opening for a couple more guys. So I think Kobe Bryant could absolutely make the active roster on this 53 for sure. Great question, Trenton. Curtis is in here. Morning, everyone. Hey, Scott and Nick. Good morning. Alan as well. And he says it's a beautiful morning in South Georgia. Yeah, it is. It's been just gorgeous. Love April. Love April in the Southeast. April and October, once the heat breaks, are just perfect months in the Southeast. Probably October might be a little better because of the pollen in early April. So let's say mid-April to like mid-May. Let's say that month in there. James, good to see you. Morning, guys. Good morning. Sam has a good point on here too. He says, crazy how high they put the Bucks when we beat them twice and they needed a collapse by us to win the division. Yeah, and it's not like they made a lot of noise in the playoffs either, where they got hot and made a run. And this is a hot team that we like what we see moving forward. But running through some of the power rankings, the first one I started at was NFL.com, and that was Eric Edholm, and he's got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 7. And he moved them up 2 spots based on the draft. And we do like the wide receiver pick. They're getting older at wide receiver. Emeka Egbuka is a good pick. Then they got Benjamin Morrison, a corner that, we talked about a lot. But number 7, if Tampa Bay is the 7th best team in the NFL, the NFC is wide open, dude. So, you got the heavy hitters. You got Philly and Detroit. And then Washington is solid. Washington's going to be a force to be reckoned with. But then it's Tampa. All right. Tampa, and then the Rams, and then the Packers at 7, 8, and 9. And then the Vikings at 10. And the Vikings were actually down 3 spots based on their draft. So those are the teams in the top 10. But now I got to scroll a ways to get to the Atlanta Falcons, who are at 21. Now, the equivalent of 21, the 21st team in the NFL last year was the Dallas Cowboys. That would mean they would have the 12th overall pick in the NFL draft, and 7 and 10 finished 12th. 7 and 10. So if Eric is right, and the Falcons are the 21st team, or depending on record. See, power rankings are a little different, but they end up being standings. It's supposed to reflect the best team, but the best team could have a tougher schedule. So it ends up reflecting the standings for the most part. But if they're the 21st best team by record, that team last year was 7 and 10 and had the 12th pick in the Dallas Cowboys. If that happens, there's going to be some big changes in Atlanta. And what strikes me a little as odd on this one, too, was that there was a dash next to, did they help themselves in the draft? I don't know how you could look at the Atlanta Falcons and say they didn't get better. I just, that part of it blows my mind. This isn't a draft ranking. This isn't a how did they do in the draft? Did they spend their stuff wisely? Did they help? Did they address their needs? This isn't a draft ranking. It's a power ranking. How do you look at what the Falcons are bringing in with Jalen Walker, Xavier Watts, Billy Bowman, James Pierce Jr., and say, nah, they didn't get any better? That one I don't agree with. Sometimes I feel like people get mixed messages. They kind of back their way into what they want to. I've got it in my mind what I think these teams should be ranked. Now I'm going to reverse engineer my logic into making that happen. I didn't like their draft. Well, that's a different conversation. Did they get better in this draft for 2025? The question isn't, did they spend too much on their 2026 pick? You mean to tell me you brought in 2 first-round picks and didn't get better? Oh, my God. You should be fired right away then. You got 2 first-round picks and you didn't get better? And not even just get better. We're not talking about moving from like 3 to 2. We're talking about moving from 21 to 18, where 1 or 2 players can make a a jump of 2 or 3 wins, which is a huge jump. You go from 7-10 to 10-7. Well, the number one 10-7 team last year was the Denver Broncos, and they were 10th. The 10th best team had a 10-7 record. So you go from 21 to 10 based on 3 wins. That's how small the margins are. And you mean to tell me that you don't think this draft helped the Falcons at all? Come on, man. I don't see that one. I disagree with that one pretty vehemently. So good shout, Sam. I agree with you a lot. Michael, good to see you as well. He says, good morning, Scott, on the Falcons podcast. Let me stroll to the bottom real quick, make sure, I haven't been talking for, to the mute button for the last 10 minutes. So good morning, everybody. And, Keith, good to see you, Keith. He says 7-10 is only excusable if Penix doesn't play an entire season, like half the season. Yeah. If you have to turn to Kirk Cousins as your backup and he's already packed it in and he's basically playing for the other team, then 7-10, you've again, something's gone seriously wrong if you're 7-10, and there will be big changes over the course of the next 12 months. 7-10, and your new coach, new general manager, all of that type stuff. Trenton says Atlanta got better, but I think doubling up at 2 positions after the initial excitement of Jalen Walker, realized we left interior completely out of the picture. Yeah, Trenton, you weren't going to fix everything in this draft, but you could use you doubled up at 1 position, which was edge rusher. Understandable. The Falcons have neglected the edge. They've used a second-round pick on Arnold Ebiketie, but basically in a generation, they've neglected edge rusher. So the last guy was Takk McKinley. That was 2017. 8 years is a lifetime in the NFL. It's a lifetime. That's a full generation. So they've neglected edge for a generation of football. So getting 2 of them is okay. And then with Bowman, would we have liked to have seen a 330-pound guy? Probably. But we also said we needed cornerback in this draft. And getting a nickel is close. So he may end up being your starting nickel is what they're going. And I think even if he doesn't start, let's say Clark Phillips starts, because that's who I still like as the starter. Clark's small, really small. So now I've got a guy I can bring in different packages that if I want to have a nickel out there, but I want to be a little bigger, it makes sense. So Billy Bowman provides some depth and competition at safety and nickel. So that's why I don't see that one's quite I don't think that one's quite the double up as the other one. But yes, the interior is off a little bit as far as what do the Falcons still need? And there was a question here. Steven, good to see you, because we wrote this up. It says Montravius Adams, he was defensive tackle. He was waived by the Pittsburgh Steelers. I kind of happen to have one of my biases is I like defensive players coming out of Pittsburgh. They're tough. Mike Tomlin and his staff do a great job up there. And if it's a salary cap thing, then so be it. But I would absolutely, is he a fit for the Atlanta Falcons? I would absolutely be on the phone with his agent, see if he's interested, see what it might take, tell him what we might be able to offer if he wants to come down and work out for us. So that's how I would handle it, because the Falcons still could use some more big bodies on the defensive line. And to his credit, Terry Fontenot, I think, has done a really, really good job at finding adequate, serviceable, second-tier defensive tackles. They got Eddie Goldman for, I don't remember even how they got him. He had to have been signed as a free agent for nothing. I don't think they traded for him after he retired twice on Arthur Smith and then played for Raheem. Abdul Anderson was a really good player for the Falcons. They got a nice contract, I think, from the Commanders in free agency after, signing as a waiver wire guy, a practice squad guy. Kentavious Street has played well. LaCale London has played well. There's a couple more names that they kind of churn through, because that's what the second teamers end up doing. Those guys are usually 1 year and gone. But over this 4 years, I think the depth on the defensive tackle for those type of guys has been pretty good. Now, have they always been used the right way? That's a different discussion that I don't need to beat that dead horse this morning. Why can't they stop the run then? Well, if you want to talk about that, we can, but we've been into that a bunch. But yes, I think Montravius Adams is worth a phone call for sure. YouTube user, good morning. Good morning, guys. Good morning to you as well. Justin's down from South Mississippi. Good to see you. Says down here in Saints country, Raisin Hill. Yeah, that's Brave. We call that Braves country. You get over a little bit farther, and that ends up being you end up running into some Astros stuff historically once you hit that line. But Braves country would run all the way to New Orleans. The Falcons weren't good enough to have that same type of footprint that the Braves did. And then TBS helped that as well. Jason Scott, good morning. Unbeatable 3210, good morning as well. Larry, great to see you. Jason Scott says the best draft in a minute. Yeah, this is our fifth draft together since we've been doing the Falcons podcast. Time flies. We're going into our fifth season. This is easily, without question, no doubt in my mind, 100% the draft I was most excited about coming out of the draft. It's not even close. Last year was we're going to have to wait and see. I'm not excited in the offseason because not a one of these guys is going to contribute or shouldn't contribute unless there's injuries. It was a bunch of guys being drafted to replace 30-year-olds. It's already happened in a couple places, and Michael Penix is one of those guys, and then Ruka Rohiro is another one. Took over a little sooner than maybe expected for Grady Jarrett and or David Onyemata. But those guys were all drafted to replace entrenched starters, so they weren't going to play in 2024. This year, I expect to see Xavier Watts. I expect to see Jalen Walker. I expect to see James Pierce Jr., and then we'll see about Billy Bowman. And then I don't expect to see Nelson, the seventh round offensive tackle this year, but we might in 2025, and I'll be interested to see how to follow his progress through camp this season. So it was a fantastic draft. Seeing Dane Brugler of The Athletic, who I respect Dane. I think he's a great evaluator, but evaluating in rankings can be a little bit different. Given the Falcons a 30 out of 32. No, I don't see that. It like I said, sometimes they reverse engineer into a narrative they want. Oh, the Falcons gave up too much. Did they though? Because a lot of folks had James Pierce Jr. in their top 15. They got him at 26. And they didn't have to use a future first to do it. They didn't give it up. They got James Pierce for that future first, and then they did a pick swap with a second and what amounts to be a fourth, a pick in the 100s, a late third to do it. That wasn't too expensive. Well, what if it turns out to be? What if it is 7 and 10, Scott, and turns out to be the number 12 pick in next year's draft? Well, how did James Pierce do? Was he defensive rookie of the year? Did he have a Jared Verse type season? Because those are all hypotheticals. Did he have 8 to 10 sacks for you the first time in 7-8 years? Did he provide what you were hoping to when you got him? Then he was worth next year's number 12 pick all by itself. So be it. I guess, again, that you can't shillelagh this draft without using hypotheticals. Well, if it ends up being top 5, then they're all screwed. then they are. But on paper, again, this was not an overly expensive pick to get James Pierce Jr. Whether or not James Pierce Jr. is the right guy is a totally different discussion. That's a totally different discussion than, they gave up too much to move back up into the first round. No, they didn't. Now, do you hit? We will see. Terry, this is the C word we want to talk about because we had a bad C word last year and it was comfortable. I heard it too much. It's like a trigger word for me now. This year, the C word is going to be competitive. This will be as competitive a camp as we've had in a long time. I expect the final 53 to be one of the most promising, talent-laden teams the Falcons have fielded since Matt Ryan's last year. And again, there's going to be more balance here. The Falcons have historically, even when they were good from that run, from Matt Ryan's basically whole run, and even a little bit before that, the run, the teams were so imbalanced. Going back into the discussion, someone made a comment about, I was referring to Julio Jones, how, I'm not afraid to criticize a trade. I still criticize that trade. I'm not some homer that's just going to, y'all know that. I'm not some homer that's just going to blindly say, yes, everything they do is awesome. And I'm going to, like I said, reverse engineer my way into justifying a bad move. The Falcons, after they traded for Julio Jones, 3 of the next 4 years, they were 27th, and then like 15th, 27th in points against. They were unbalanced. Moving forward, that whole Matt Ryan, Julio Jones era, the team was totally unbalanced. Not only should this be one of the better rosters the Falcons have had easily since probably in the last 8 years, it's more balanced, at least on paper so far. They've invested pretty much the last 2 drafts into the defense. They took 5 guys on defense last year. They took 4 guys on defense this year, and not just 4 guys. They took 2 of them with top 50 picks, and then they took another one who they didn't think they'd be able to get outside the top 50. Big time investment in the defense. This team is much more balanced. I love to see it. Coach, good to see you too. Love to see you coming in as well. He says, win the day, Scott. Have a great weekend. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you being here. Psalm, good to see you. Good morning. Hope you are doing well. And Terry says, Falcons with Kirk Cheeks last year swept the division after the Cancun game from the Panthers. I love that. 1, 2, 3, Cancun. We're off on winter break already, and that's kind of what that game was. There's no way you cannot look at this roster last year. The narrative pumping is on high. I don't see how you can say the Falcons didn't get better. I really don't. How do you justify saying they didn't get better? Well, okay, here's how I would do it, because I'm pretty, with all the voices in my head, I'm pretty good at making these arguments. Well, it's not that the Falcons didn't get better. It's just that other teams moved around them too, so they ended up holding flat. The floor raised after the draft because other teams got better as well. All right, fine. The Dallas Cowboys moved up 2 spots. The Dallas Cowboys jumped the Falcons. Arizona moved up a spot to 18. So one of the reasons the Falcons didn't move is because they got hopped by the Dallas Cowboys from 22 up to 20. Did they get that much better? In a vacuum, the first 3 picks made a lot of sense. Tyler Booker continued on the OL bowstring, while the Dallas snagged Donovan Ezeraku and Savone Ravel Jr. All right, that's a nice draft. I like that. They got edge, corner, and an offensive lineman. Those are some guys we talked about with the Falcons a lot. Falcons had a big glaring weakness on their team, and they went and got 2 first-round edge rushers. Huh. They didn't get any better. Come on, man. Come on. Doesn't make any sense to me. Keith and Ellen Johnson, great to see you. Thanks always for the support, my friend. Hope you are doing well. Want to scroll down a little bit. Derek Anderson. Derek says, Scott Kennedy, what are your thoughts on Troy Anderson coming into his 3rd year? See, Derek, you got a Cardinals thing here, so maybe you're a Falcons fan, or maybe you're just coming in and asking a question about a Falcon and you're a fan from another team. Either way, welcome in. But your question makes me laugh, because the problem with Troy Anderson has been his ability to stay on the field. This isn't Troy Anderson's 3rd year. It's his 4th year. But you wouldn't know that because he's never on the damn field. I love, I've used this phrase a couple times here recently. I love the idea of Troy Anderson. He's so athletic. This is a guy who played quarterback in college and then moved over to linebacker. And I think he made all conference. And I don't care what level you do it at. Big Sky, Big Ten. I don't care. You're a football player. And then he's a 240-pound 4.4 guy. He's got so much ability, but he just can't stay on the field. And we said going into the offseason, you cannot count. You cannot go into the 2025 season counting on Braylon Trice, counting on Troy Anderson, counting on DeMarco Helms. 3 guys that have either coming off an injury and or are young and unproven coming off of an injury. The Falcons did not. They went and signed Divine Diablo in free agency. They drafted 2 safeties, and they drafted 2 edges. Now they've got competition. If Braylon Trice, if Troy Anderson, if DeMarco Helms end up winning over those spots, it means they earned it and are playing at a high level. Competition. Troy Anderson is a wild card for me, Derek. I think he is one of the singular most talented players on the team, but he's not on the field. And that's one of the problems there. Terry says, I don't think D. Alford makes this team. We'll see. He got $230,000 of signing bonus to go through camp. And if he makes it, fine. Again, it goes back to last year. The two deep was written in Sharpie before at this time last year, before May even came around. And then there was a couple injuries and they had to make some changes, but there was no competition, none. This year, we can look at a lot of these spots, especially starting 11 spots, and say, it might be this guy, it might be this guy. I can look at edge. Is Arnold Ebiketie a for sure starter? Is Leonard Floyd a for sure starter? No. Braylon Trice could go in there and fight for some spots. I think there's going to be a big rotation in the edge room. I don't even know that we will be able to say starters. I think there's going to be a rotation where you're going to see a lot of guys play, and then the cream will rise to the top. The first 4 weeks of the season, we could see a lot of 4 guys on the edge. We could see a lot of Leonard Floyd, Arnold Ebiketie, James Pierce Jr., and Jalen Walker. Damn, sounds good, doesn't it? That sounds good. I like the sound of that. Sounds good. You know what else I like? ATL Focus coming in. He says, appreciate the super chat. Do you think this draft class matches the production of the 2016 class? That's already 10 years ago. So let me go through the names on the 2016. I know Vic Beasley was 2015. 2016, to refresh your memory, was Keanu Neal, Deion Jones, Austin Hooper, Devondre Campbell, Wes Schweitzer, and Devin Fuller. So you ended up with that's a damn good draft. The 6th round pick, Wes Schweitzer, played 90 games in the NFL. Devondre Campbell wasn't great in Atlanta, but then moved on and played really well. Keanu Neal, for my money, was arguably the best safety Atlanta's ever had before Jesse Bates took that title and ran off with it. Now it's no question. Who's the best safety the Falcons have ever had? Jesse Bates. Easy. That one's easy. And then Deion Jones was really, really good until some injuries caught up with him, and then the position, as an undersized linebacker, he fell off a cliff in a hurry. But Deion Jones was really, really good. Austin Hooper was solid, and has been a good pro. But I think he's another one of those guys that Matt Ryan made a lot of money for. There's some guys, the Mohamed Sanu effect, the Austin Hooper effect. There's these guys that Matt Ryan made a lot of money for. And Kyle Pitts could be one of those guys too. The Kyle Pitts effect. Kyle Pitts has been in the league for 4 years. Hasn't come close to doing what he did with Matt Ryan as quarterback. So Austin Hooper was a Pro Bowler in 2024 and 2025, his last 2 years in Atlanta. He had 660 yards and 787, the highest he's had since then, and that was 2019. So 5 more seasons in the NFL. The highest he's had since then was this year, actually in New England, with 476. So roughly half of his best season in Atlanta. So that was a really good draft. I've given Thomas Dimitroff as much hell as anybody on earth. And I think his drafts, I think his roster management and balance, again, like I said, balance earlier, and salary cap management were piss poor. And I think, though, his college evaluations and the guys that he got, for the most part, yes, you're going to have some high profile misses. We're pretty good. We're pretty good. The problem is the team was always so unbalanced. I always said he acted like he was the agent for a 7v7 quarterback and got a kickback on whatever that quarterback made. So I want to make sure he's throwing for a bazillion yards in a 7-on-7 where they don't need offensive linemen or really any defense. But that was a good draft. That's a great question. Great question, ATL. Certainly appreciate it. Sam Klontz, let's get into this one too. I want to hit on a couple more things here real quick. We're only at 30 minutes, and I still have about 2/3 of a cup of coffee, so we're good to go. Sam says, was looking at our opponents for next year. Buffalo is the only scary team. AFC East and NFC West are some winnable games. What's your record projection? Let me see if I can bring this up here real quick. They've added the feature where I can share. Come on, where I can share the pictures. So I wanted to bring this picture up real quick, Sam, and I'll bring you back up here. This is the Atlanta Falcons opponents. Now the schedule releases in 2 weeks, but these are the opponents. The home, and I was looking through this before the show, home and away. If you go home, you've got your 3 divisional games, and I'd like to see the Falcons go at least, well, they went 5-1 last year, Scott. I know, but that was first time in a while. I'd like to see the Falcons go at least 4-2. So maybe you get a couple of splits and then you sweep one of the teams. That's feasible. Maybe you sweep 2 of the teams and you go 5-1. The Saints are, the credit card is caught up with the Saints. Now they may defy expectations, but it's funny when we start talking about salary cap and people say the salary cap's a myth. Look at the Saints. I say, yes, look at the Saints. The Saints are a train wreck. That's what happens when you keep pushing the credit card down the line. The bill eventually comes due. You can manipulate year to year, but the bill will eventually come due when all of the guys you've kicked all that money down the road for get old. And I've got Cam Jordan with a $30 million cap hit and a $50 million dead cap hit, and I'm not even playing him. That becomes a problem eventually. And then the quarterback situation, obviously. But looking at this, your home games, if I go 2-1 against the Saints and Panthers, Buffalo's a handful, LA's a handful, Washington's a handful, Seattle's been a handful, and Miami's a handful. The schedule this year is the hardest it's been in 3 years, without a doubt. So 2-1, and then if you can pull off a winning record against those other teams and go 3-2, you're looking at what, 5-3 in your home games, 2-1 on the other side, and then hopefully away you can get a win against the Cardinals, Patriots, and Jets, and then maybe get 1 out of 3 against San Francisco, Minnesota, Colts. If I add all that up, when I added all this in my head before, and I'm just doing this live, so I didn't stop and count them up, but when I did it before, I looked at this and said, best case, 11 wins. Best case, 11 wins, I think is realistic for a best case scenario. Worst case scenario, obviously, we know all about worst case scenarios in Atlanta. So, Sam, I think 10-7 is realistic here, assuming Michael Penix, injuries, and assuming Michael Penix continues to be the guy that we saw last year, and the defense plays at even a competent level. I'm not even talking top 15. I'm talking about not bottom 3 like they were last year. Before you go in the comments and say, but Scott, they weren't bottom 3 in yards and points. I know. Watch last week's show as we describe what bottom 3 actually meant. They couldn't get teams off the field. They gave up the most points per drive. They gave up the most yards per drive. They gave up the most time per drive. So anytime the Falcons touched the ball, they were either pinned back or they had just they were receiving a kickoff because the other team had just scored. So when we get the schedule, we'll run through it and go, 1, 2, 3 all the way down. But this schedule looks considerably tougher than what we've seen. There's not a gimme in the home slate out of conference this year, out of division. I mean, the Bills are really good. The Rams are good. The Commanders are good. The Seahawks are good. The Dolphins are good. That's a much, much harder slate of games when it comes to looking at these and the record. And then going back to power rankings, you could have a team that's top 15 as far as how good is this team, but then their schedule ends up playing. And like I said, they always confuse power rankings with record because the power rankings always end up equaling the power rankings always end up equaling the standings. Well, everybody doesn't play the same schedule. So I can be a really good 500 team in a tough division, or I could win the division 4 straight times in the NFC or AFC South, which are poor divisions. Good question on that, Sam. Certainly appreciate it. But I think My record projection off the cuff, and then we'll go game by game, would be 10-7 right now. 9-8, I think you're safe. 8-9, I think there's some changes coming. I think there's some changes coming. For me, after trading up in the first round, getting another first round pick, not having a first round pick next year, I think they're all in on this season. And if they don't have a winning season, okay, we've tried it your way for 5 years. We're making some changes on that. Rusty, good to see you. He says, Troy Anderson equals Shamar Stewart. Athletic freak, but the type of guy Atlanta typically can't coach up. I don't know what people see in Troy. In my opinion, he's not good. I disagree with almost all of this, except for the athletic freak point, Rusty. I think Troy Anderson was a defensive player of the year in college. Again, it was small school, but we're talking about production here. Herschel Walker is Herschel Walker, whether he's playing at Callaway High School or he's playing at Parkview High School in 7A. He's still Herschel Walker. You can only dominate the guys that are put in front of you. And Troy Anderson dominated. He was an all-conference player of the year as a quarterback. He was an all-conference player of the year as a defender. The dude's a football player. The type of guy Atlanta typically can't coach up. The last time we saw Troy Anderson in a full game, he was NFC Defensive Player of the Week. Okay, so that's what I see in Troy Anderson. When he's on the field, he's a difference maker. He's 6'3", 240 pounds of speed, a ball of lightning. Does he always make the right reads? No. Shamar Stewart is almost exactly the opposite. He's the same athletic freak with zero production. He hasn't done anything in college. It was at a much higher level. But again, if I'm talking about a guy that should go in the first round with his traits. Now, one of the guys that works for me, he actually went to high school with Shamar, and he said, Rusty, you've probably heard this story before because you're in here with us almost every week. But he said, I went to high school with Shamar. He was the worst player on our team. And I kind of joked back with him. I said, I wouldn't put this in writing. I said, well, he's still the worst player on the field. He's just, 6 inches taller and 270 pounds. So in my opinion, if I'm looking for the upside of Shamar Stewart, it's this guy is just trying to figure out what the hell to do with his body. He was a 6 foot, 190 pound kid, just a few years ago, 3-4 years ago, and was soft and getting beat up a lot and hasn't really learned how, wait a minute, I'm the friggin' Hulk now. I'm a monster. For Troy, it's just health. It's health. And I wonder is he one of those guys, the guy's he's not a diesel engine, he's a dragster, and it takes a little, it doesn't take much for a dragster to if you miss out on a sprinter, they could be done. Meanwhile, a diesel tractor can just keep on churning and churning and churning and churning, even with some mechanical failures. I wonder if Troy is, a little too athletic, where sometimes some body fat in there helps out. So you can't count on Troy on that one because he can't stay healthy. But he absolutely has production in his background. Kiera, not gonna lie, I'm tired of coaching changes, so I hope they get it right. Yeah, Kiera, and I saw someone say something about general managers, like, oh, we're looking for another general manager. It's like Arthur Blank's only had 2 general managers. So he's been pretty patient there. And as far as the coaches go, we're sick of the changes, yes, because that means you're having bad seasons. But have you thought the Falcons ever pulled the trigger too early on a guy that they've had since Arthur Blank has done it? Oh, that guy shouldn't have been fired. No, and for me, I think it's kind of been the opposite, where when Mike Smith got fired, I was kind of pissed. Mike Smith is still the Falcons' all-time winningest coach. I'm like, if you're going to fire Mike Smith, you need to fire Thomas Dimitroff too, because he's the one that totally unbalanced Mike Smith's roster, has no offensive line, has no defense, but he's got a bunch of shiny toys on offense. I was pissed. Like, he should go too. He should be the one to go too. After that, Mike Smith to Dan Quinn. Again, I put it on Dimitroff on that, but it became obvious to me that the team had stopped playing for Dan Quinn. And then Arthur Smith, I don't think anybody had any complaints with Arthur Smith getting the axe. But yes, tired of seeing the changes because it means they haven't gotten it right. What we're tired of is losing. As many of y'all know, my fandom, where I spend my fan time, is with Chelsea Football Club. They were a trophy-winning machine, and I don't think they had the same manager 2 years in a row. Now, it's definitely different in international football than regular football, but there's no, you've got 3 years to get it right. If you lose, it costs you big-time money. You can get kicked out of the league. They can't afford to wait. They're churning through managers in soccer every 18 months. Greg Custom Kicks, good to see you here. A moron commented under my post on the Atlanta Bird Gang Facebook group. We had a horrible draft after I said A+ because we traded back into the first. Can't please fans without football knowledge. And Greg, I've just started deleting those. I've just started blocking those people. Like, listen, we're not all going to agree. I just, Rusty, who, I consider y'all friends that we communicate with all the time, even if we've never met. Maybe we need to fix that this year. This community is getting big enough. We need to get together and have just kind of a meet and greet over at Wild Wings or something. So let's put a pin in that one and think about it. But I consider y'all friends in this community that are here all the time. And Rusty, I disagree with Rusty on this. I appreciate his point. We can have this discussion, and if he disagreed with me, it'd be fine. We shouldn't always all agree, but when people start their disagreements with LOL and LMAO, just completely discounting the discussion and being disrespectful, I'm just blocking people like that now. I'm like, listen, if you don't want to have a discussion, go somewhere else. There's lots of other places to do this. There's plenty of places I love having the discussion. As you guys have heard me say before, I'm not going to tell you I'm right. Mostly, most of the time I won't tell you that, but I'll tell you what I think, and then it's up for us to decide. But yeah, you can't please everybody, and there's legitimate criticisms of this draft. Because one of our concerns going in with Terry Fontenot, knowing his ass was on the line, would he give up too much in this draft? Oh my God, they just traded back in the first round. They gave up what? They gave up next year's first round draft pick and a first and a second. Oh wait, no, they didn't. No, they didn't. They gave up a first, swapped a second for a third, and they didn't give up. Again, there's the terminology. They didn't give up a first. They used a first on a first round pick in James Pierce Jr., who ESPN has their 16th best prospect on their big board. Got him at 26, but the Falcons didn't get value for it. Huh? What? Can you math? Can you make that math for me? They got the 16th best guy at 26, but they didn't get value for their pick. Huh. That don't make no sense. I think it was Sharp Football, maybe. They did and this is a total going off of media-based boards anyway, but they did the DVOA ROE type of thing, a return over expected. And the Falcons finished first. What does that mean? When they picked guys, did they get them higher or lower than they were expected to go? They finished first. Jalen Walker wasn't supposed to be there. James Pierce Jr. wasn't supposed to be there. Xavier Watts wasn't supposed to be there. So when you're talking about who reached for a guy and who got value at a guy, at least the perception based on the overall mock drafts and the consensus boards, where the Falcons actually had the best draft as far as return over expectations, but they didn't help themselves. They didn't get better. Come on, man. That doesn't make any sense. Boss Trucker talking about guys fired too early was Dan Reeves. The problem with Dan Reeves, and Dan Reeves got him run himself out of 3 jobs, was he wanted to be the general manager. Dan Reeves is a Hall of Fame, fantastic football coach. He was a god-awful general manager, drafter, negotiator of contracts. He was horrendous. May he rest in peace. He is a Hall of Fame coach. He was a terrible general manager. So you couldn't fire one without the other. So that's kind of how I see that one. King Richie talking about Raheem. If we gave Arthur Smith 3 years, we can try Raheem for 3. The expectations are so much different, King. When Arthur Smith took over, they knew it was going to be 2 years of hell before they could go for it in year 3. They went through 2 years of hell, eked out a 7-10 and a 7-10 record, spent a ton of money on free agents who hit, by the way. Terry Fontenot hit on those guys in free agency. He hit on Jesse Bates. He hit on David Onyemata. He hit on Caden Ellis. He hit on Calais Campbell. He hit on Bud Dupree. That's 5 right off the top of my head. I think there may have even been 1 or 2 more in there. Hit on all of them, especially on defense. And they went 7-10 again because coaching, personnel decisions at the quarterback position, and blew it. So it cost him $2,000. It cost him. We expect to be ready in year 3, and they weren't. Cost Arthur Smith his job. This isn't the same case. They were entering year 1 with Raheem Morris, where Arthur Smith was in year 3, but they had just spent $100 million on a quarterback. They didn't then improve the team after that, as far as who could help them in 2024 much. But it was a very different expectations, is where this comes into. And they says, we fired Bobby Petrino too soon. Oh, wait, the Falcons didn't fire Bobby Petrino. He walked out. What a clown show that was. Oh, he didn't. Just a poor character person. I mean, if you don't already know more about Bobby Petrino, he's not a good person. Going back to, what was that, 2003, stabbing Tommy Tuberville in the back at Auburn. That was my first taste of Bobby Petrino. And then it got bad. And then it got really bad on that. 10 Cam says, I love Mike Smith. Me too. He was really good. Keith, that's a good question. Did one of your favorite players get drafted by an NFC South rival? Good question. I don't remember seeing anybody that I was thinking, oh man, I really was hoping that guy ended up with the Falcons. Now there's some guys that I like, obviously. And if it's a draft tracker picks, we'll go. I felt like Carolina had a decent, but it's like they went offense, Falcons went defense. I didn't want the Falcons to go offense, but if we start with Carolina Panthers, Ted McMillan, Nick Scourton. I wasn't high on him. I wasn't high on Princely, the edge out of Ole Miss. Cam Jackson in the 5th was a guy I liked. Now, maybe there was one that if the Falcons had gone in the 4th round, but that's a full round earlier was Cam Jackson. So not really. If it wasn't Billy Bowman, then I wanted kind of a defensive tackle there. And I thought Cam made sense. New Orleans Saints, I think I already know the answer to this one. Kelvin Banks Jr., the offensive tackle, no. Tyler Shuck, no. Devin Neal. I do like, again, I go to their 7th round. Malika Mataveo, the tight end from UCLA. I kind of like him. I do kind of like him. But again, 7th rounder, he might not even make the team. So there wasn't anybody there that I was thinking, for the Falcons or, oh man, that was one of my draft crushes. That's always, by the way, Keith, that's always the Ravens. It's always the Ravens that if I swear they're like Google to me and they know what I'm typing in. I'll send to Nick, oh man, Aeneas Peebles. I'm rewatching the Senior Bowl stuff right now. Aeneas Peebles he was unblockable. He's just kind of a tweener. He's about 6'2", 290 pounds. And with the 27th pick in the 5th round, the Baltimore Ravens select Aeneas Peebles. I'm like, all right, this is getting silly now. David Walker, no. Elijah Roberts, Tez Johnson, not really. So they did what to help themselves, but I didn't see really any draft crushes. I didn't see really any draft crushes in there. Let me see here. let me scroll down a little bit. Lots of good conversation. I don't think Greg came in twice. Here we go. Scott, look at the same people perspective. We didn't have the Penix insurance. They're making moves to better the team. Pressure inspires change. Look at Diamonds. Terry Fontenot hasn't done as bad as people think. The draft hasn't always been great, but when I went through the grades, I don't know if y'all had seen this. Hit me up in the comments if you want a link to it. But I graded all of his draft picks in the first 3 years. I didn't do last year because that was a redshirt year. It was day 2 was just bad. Day 2, your second and third round picks. He had 8 of them, 8 in 3 seasons, day 2 picks. And I had him as 3 of 8, 3 for 8 on those picks, hit rate on those picks, with 2 of them being iffy. And that was Zach Harrison, defensive lineman. I rated as a hit, and I rated Arnold Ebiketie as a hit. But day 2 has been pretty bad. And again, people say, oh, look at the first round. Look what he got in the first round. Man, when you're drafting in the top 10, you're supposed to get good guys. If you don't get good guys in the first round, you're not supposed to be drafting in the top 10 4 years in a row. You're supposed to build your team better and get out of the top 10. Terry Fontenot hasn't done as bad as people think. No, there's just been a couple of, again, day 2 has been bad. It's been really bad, especially when you're drafting with a top 10 draft slot. I think the pro personnel, except for that iceberg, the Kirk Cousins thing, he's been really, really good with professional free agency. The salary cap management has been okay. He came in a nightmare and got that fixed up, but then he blew 2 years of salary cap money on Kirk Cousins, which was unnecessary when you wanted to take a 24-year-old first-round pick at quarterback. And then because you've missed on so many of your day 2 guys, you lack rookie contracts as big-time contributors, and you're having to go free agents. We did this. I didn't have didn't have it in front of me the other day, but I was saying, look, when you look at the Falcons defense, I'm not sure that there's a rookie contract as a starter other than Arnold Ebiketie. Right now, their starting lineup looks like Morgan Fox, free agent. David Onyemata, free agent. Ruka Rohro, draft pick. Okay, there's one. I forgot about him. Leonard Floyd, free agent. Caden Ellis, free agent. Divine Diablo, free agent. Arnold Ebiketie, rookie contract. Last year of his rookie contract. AJ Terrell, second contract. Jordan Fuller, free agent. Jesse Bates, free agent. Mike Alford, free agent. D. Alford, cheap, second contract. That's where your salary cap gets blown to hell. But no, why haven't the Falcons had a winning record? Because they didn't get a quarterback sooner and went on Des Ridder, which that was a mistake. That was a mistake that cost Arthur Smith his job on that one. Larry says, I feel like Kobe Bryant's going to push for a cornerback 2, coming in with a chip on his shoulder. Cornerback 2, hell, I think he's going to push for starting nickel. He's got a chance to come in and play right away. And Kiera says the same thing. I think he does. I think Bryant has a really solid chance of earning some playing time. Might be cornerback 2. I like the smaller guys in the slot though, as opposed to outside. I mean, I don't want him against DK Metcalf. I don't want him against Drake London. Be good practice, but he's given up 40, 50 pounds to those guys on the outside. And if I've got a big slot, an Evan Ingram type, or even when Drake London comes down in the slot, now I want Billy Bowman out there. I think that's where he comes in. A former safety coming in and playing nickel against some of the bigger slots. So should be interesting. AJ, how likely is it we find a veteran nose tackle who was cut before the season? We desperately need a big body there. I think it happens. Montravius Adams is one of those guys. When I sent it to Dave Holcomb, I said, hey, write this up. And put in the title Falcons on alert, and then just reiterate that these are the type of guys who become available. It might not be Montravius Adams, but these are the type of guys who become available from May 1st to September 1st, and then more become available September 4th when all the cuts come in. So I think I don't think they're done on the defensive line. There'll be some guys that come in. Will they make the team? We'll see. We'll see on that one. And Jack, repeating something we've said on this. Jordan Fuller, why two safeties? Because Jordan Fuller's only got $80,000 guaranteed. There's no guarantee he's making the roster. So there is a lot. The DB room is crowded, and that's good. That's good. There's competition. There's going to be a lot of guys fighting for just a few spots, and guys that were starters in the past are now fighting just to make the 53. So much better. The new Cword, y'all, is competitive. Competitive. Let me see here. As August 809 says, media saying a team had a bad draft doesn't mean anything. No, it doesn't. It's a knee-jerk reaction of, did you get value? Well, the Falcons, according to return over expectations, had the best draft. And did you fill some needs? Did you fill your needs with guys that will play right away? The answer to that is, without a doubt, yes. Now, did you pick the right guys? You don't know the answer to that until 3-4 years down the line, and sometimes not even then. The problem is you're on rookie contracts. Kyle Pitts may end up to be all world, but it was the wrong time to draft a 20-year-old tight end. And you're going to burn through his rookie contract. Now George Kittle has gotten another big deal. So that the price for franchising him has gone up another couple $1 million. You were not able to take advantage of Kyle Pitts' rookie contract because the team wasn't set up to take advantage of a 20-year-old tight end. That's different than, that's grading different. That's a long-term grade. And you can't grade a draft. You cannot grade a draft successfully 3 minutes after the draft. You can't do it. You can project and say, did you get value? Yes or no. Did you fit needs? Yes or no. Will these guys help? Yes or no. On paper, those are all hypotheticals. So, yeah, it doesn't mean anything until these guys show up and play. Was the process good for the Atlanta Falcons? I believe it was. I believe they got great value and they addressed needs. What more am I asking for here? Did they get the right guys? We don't know the answer to that. We don't know the answer to that one yet. OMT says, I wish I had 80,000 guaranteed. Go out and run a 4.4 and you probably can. So, with Clark Phillips, he might be a little bit small. I like Clark Phillips, though, as a football player. When we talked about it on Monday, there's kind of a chart you use mentally, and I'm sure people have actually done this physically, where you put up the y-axis, you say this is their production. Along the x-axis, you put their physical traits, like the RAS score. And then the guys in the top right that are high on both, those guys go high. They go in the first round. When you get to day 3, you're looking for somebody that's still on the board that is high, either high left or low and far to the right, meaning they've got really good traits or they had really good production. Nick Nash is one of those guys that is pegged the production, but isn't that great on athletic traits. Wide receiver. His production is outstanding. Clark Phillips is one of those production guys. Pac-12 player of the year is like a 5'9" safety. I like him in the middle being able to use his instincts, and he should have been at nickel all along. Again, I don't want the size speed freaks are outside at receiver. I don't want my undersized, under-athletic corner out there guarding those guys. I want them in the middle. I want them closer where they can react to the ball a little bit better. Chris says we never should have gotten rid of Calais Campbell. Wasn't really up to them, though. He was a free agent. His run-stopping numbers this year, he is still elite at what he does. And, and again, just the effect that he has just being around, it's a little bit like losing Grady Jarrett. But Grady's voice had been around for a while. So having Calais come in, it was one of the reasons I said I liked Jalen Carter for the Falcons. He had some, personality issues, some character concerns. I'm like, yeah, but I'm dropping him in a room with Calais Campbell and Grady Jarrett. I like that. I like that as a mentor. Loved Calais Campbell. He was only here for 1 year and didn't want to come back. I mean, not necessarily didn't want to come back, but went home. He went down to Miami for a year. That, I don't think it was really an option. Jeebus H. He says, what do you think of kicker Lenny K? Not much, honestly. Not that I don't think much of him. I just don't think of him much. I don't know too much about him. I know, speaking logically, Younghoe Koo could be a guy that they could save some money from. He was hurt last year too. And again, this is where we talk about the Kirk Cousins thing of, he hit his injury. He screwed us over. They hide injuries all the time. Younghoe Koo went on the DL almost immediately after they pulled him. He was hurt too. Players are expected to battle through those things. And for the most time, keep their mouths shut. Younghoe Koo was hurt. Does he become Younghoe Koo again with an offseason of getting healthy, or is he done? It's a fine line with kickers. My logical thought on this was, I don't know anything about him, but good. They need competition. They need competition at kicker too. Younghoe Koo should not be guaranteed a roster spot. As much as we love him, as much good as he has done, he's been well compensated for it. He should not be guaranteed a roster spot in 2025. Troy, how live are we? We're live, but we're 61 minutes into the show, and we are about to call it because my throat is about toast, and it's been an hour. I got to get to some stuff. I'm going to write up some of these power rankings things. I've got Rappaport coming on FalconsSI.com. Rappaport was talking about how the Falcons went and got Pierce. We've got a story coming up on Jack Nelson. Then there's a good one from Daniel Flick. He did a deep dive on how the Falcons plan to use Jalen Walker. So check those out on our site, FalconsSI.com, to catch up with all the latest. When is minicamp? Kira, I think at the top of the show, I said I'm not much of a type A person. I'm an in-the-moment guy, so I don't know. I know it's not today or tomorrow. I haven't really looked that far ahead yet to know. And then people have been talking about the schedule release so much on May 14th that I do know that one. So Chris says the 7th. I'm guessing 7th of May. The rookies should get there pretty quick and go through it. So it'll be good to get some of that going. Hopefully get some media availability too. Hear from the new guys as well. On that note, guys, I'm going to get out of here. I hope y'all had a fun time this morning. We got a bunch of people watching. If you haven't subscribed already, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you get those alerts when we do some crazy things like go live at 11 o'clock because the Falcons traded back into the first round. So on that note, I want to say thank you to our Super Chat superstars. We had Keith and Ellen Johnson over on Facebook. ATL Focus, good to see you. Sam, hope you were doing well, my friend. Rusty, good discussion. I enjoy these type of discussions, Rusty. So thank you for the comment, the super, and the good discussion on that. Greg Custom Kicks, hope you are still kicking out there with your custom kicks. I know you had a big week last week. I hope it still gets going. And then JHC closing us out. It is Wednesday. It is gorgeous outside. Enjoy some time to take a little bit of a breather as we get closer to minicamp and get going. Real football will be back here before we know it. The draft will put behind us. Now it's time to look forward, and I am looking forward to seeing these draft picks on the field early and often for the Atlanta Falcons. Thanks for being here, everybody. I hope y'all have a great rest of your week.